Imagine sitting in a room filled with balloons, a cake that no one has touched, and decorations that already look tired, as if mocking you for believing this day would matter. That was me on my own birthday. I sat there watching the clock, waiting for the sound of footsteps, a knock on my door, even a whisper of "Happy Birthday." Nothing came. Hours passed, and the silence grew louder than any celebration could have been. It's a strange kind of pain when the people who should love you most act as though you don't exist. Each minute felt like proof that I was invisible in my own family, a shadow they never noticed. I told myself maybe they were planning a surprise, but deep down I knew better. What I didn't know was that the night wasn't over, and the person who would finally knock on my door was the mayor. But before that moment, you need to know how everything led up to this day. In my family, love always felt like a limited resource, something rationed out carefully, but never in my direction. My parents weren't cruel in the obvious sense. They didn't yell or slam doors. Their neglect was quieter, sharper. It showed in the way my achievements went unnoticed while my siblings' smallest successes were treated like national holidays. When my brother got a good grade, we went out for dinner. When my sister joined a school club, my parents bought her gifts. But when I won an art contest, the certificate sat on the counter until it disappeared with the trash. It wasn't just about gifts or celebrations. It was about presence. My parents were busy people, always running after something: money, status, appearances. They wore their exhaustion like armor, claiming they were too tired to notice the things that mattered to me. Over time, I learned not to expect much. Still, a part of me always hoped for that one moment when they'd look at me and see more than the invisible child in the corner. That's why birthdays mattered. Not for the cake, not for the presents, but for the chance, however small, that my existence might finally be acknowledged. Maybe they'd pause their endless rushing and say, "We're proud you're ours." Maybe for one day, I wouldn't feel like a guest in my own home. So when my birthday came around, I thought, just this once, they would show up for me. I woke up that morning with a strange kind of determination. If my family wasn't going to plan anything for me, then I would do it myself. I hung streamers across my room, set balloons by the door, and even placed a small cake on the table, something simple I had saved up for with my own allowance. Each detail felt like a promise to myself. Today will be different. Today, they will notice. As the morning slipped into afternoon, my excitement grew. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, I thought, "Here it comes. They're going to walk in and finally see me." But each sound faded into nothing, and the door never opened. My parents went about their day as though it was any other Saturday. Emails, errands, endless chatter about bills and work. My siblings, too, were absorbed in their own worlds. My brother bragged about a sports win. My sister announced she'd been chosen to represent her school at an event. My parents' attention flocked to them like moths to a flame, while I sat quietly in the corner, decorations drooping above me like a cruel joke. The more they celebrated my siblings' lives, the smaller I felt in my own. My heart pounded with the desperate hope that at any second they would turn and remember me. But that second never came. At first I thought maybe they had planned a surprise. But the truth was much worse. Hours dragged by like they had their own cruel agenda. Every tick of the clock echoed in the empty house, a reminder that no one had come, no one had called, and no one even remembered. I tried to distract myself, rearranging the balloons, staring at the cake, telling myself it didn't matter. But deep down, a bitter ache began to twist in my chest. Hope was giving way to resentment, and resentment was sharpening into anger. I tried to mention it casually, hoping someone would notice. "It's my birthday today," I said, trying for a light tone. My mother barely looked up from her phone, muttering, "We're too busy, stop being dramatic." My father waved me off, already distracted by a work call. Even my siblings laughed at me, teasing in that way that stung far more than cruelty. It was indifference dressed as humor. I felt small, humiliated, trapped between rage and shame. Friends passing by the window waved awkwardly, pitying me with smiles that cut deeper than silence. The world outside seemed to notice my pain. But the people who were supposed to care the most did not. And just when I thought I couldn't sink any lower, something unbelievable happened. By evening, the decorations sagged, the balloons drooping as if mourning with me. The cake had begun to soften, frosting starting to melt, and I sat on the edge of my bed, tears mingling with frustration, each sob a silent question. Why am I invisible? Why do they treat me like I don't matter? My heart ached not just from disappointment, but from the realization that the people who should have been my safe haven had no place for me at all. I replayed every memory, every overlooked accomplishment, every birthday forgotten, trying to make sense of it. Am I too much? Too quiet? Too ordinary? Each thought cut deeper, a relentless echo of loneliness that filled the walls around me. The house, once familiar, now felt alien, a stage set for my isolation. I had nearly resigned myself to spending the night alone when the faint sound of a car pulling up startled me. My pulse quickened, a spark of curiosity mingling with despair. Could it be someone stopping by? A neighbor, maybe? I wiped my tears, thinking it was just another neighbor. But when I opened the door, I froze. I blinked, certain my eyes were playing tricks on me. Standing at the doorstep was the mayor, flanked by 2 staff members, a small bouquet in hand, and a warm smile that felt impossibly surreal. Behind him, a sleek car idled silently, a quiet announcement of importance that made my heart pound faster than I thought possible. He stepped forward, placing the flowers gently in my hands. "I've been meaning to thank you properly," he said, voice calm yet filled with sincerity. My mind raced. Why would the mayor be here? And then it hit me. Months ago, I had helped his child after a fall at the community center, staying late to tutor them and lending a hand when no one else noticed. It had seemed insignificant at the time, just a small gesture. But someone had remembered. Here I was, ignored by the people who were supposed to love me most, yet recognized by the city's highest authority. The contrast was dizzying. My parents had forgotten my birthday, yet a stranger, someone with power, respect, and influence, had come to honor me. Shock, disbelief, and a flicker of empowerment surged through me all at once, and in that moment, everything I thought I knew about being invisible changed. The front yard, once quiet and empty, was suddenly alive with neighbors peeking out of windows, curious whispers rippling through the street. The mayor stepped forward, clearing his throat as his aides positioned a small podium beside my front door. "Today," he began, "we celebrate someone whose kindness and courage quietly made a difference, someone who didn't wait for recognition but acted with integrity, even when no one was watching." I felt my chest tighten, a mixture of disbelief and a rush of pride. People started to gather, neighbors I barely knew, clapping, smiling, some even cheering. The lonely birthday I had imagined, the one with empty rooms and silence, was transforming into something I hadn't dared to hope for. The cake, the balloons, my small decorations, they now felt significant. A backdrop to a recognition far larger than anything my family had ever given me. Then they arrived, my parents, walking up the driveway, expressions frozen between confusion and embarrassment. They had expected an ordinary day, maybe a quiet acknowledgement if any at all. Instead, they were met with the attention of the community, their neglect laid bare in front of everyone they knew. My siblings tried to whisper apologies, but their words fell flat under the applause and admiration surrounding me. I stood there, receiving accolades and smiles from people whose respect I had never anticipated. The contrast was almost intoxicating. The parents who had ignored me, now shrinking into the background, while I, the forgotten child, was being celebrated. Shame flickered across their faces as they realized just how much they had underestimated me, how wrong they had been to overlook the person I had quietly become. For the first time, they weren't the ones in control. They were the ones on the outside, watching me shine. After the speeches ended and the applause began to fade, my parents lingered, shuffling awkwardly as if they could somehow reclaim the day. My mother opened her mouth, fumbling for words that sounded rehearsed and hollow. We didn't mean to. but the sound of her own voice barely carried over the murmurs of the neighbors still congratulating me. My father's attempts at explanations, excuses, and rushed apologies felt equally ineffective, a weak echo against the reality of their neglect. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My silence spoke louder than anything I could have shouted. Standing tall, holding the flowers the mayor had given me, I felt a strength I hadn't known I possessed. I realized that I didn't need their approval to validate my worth. The acknowledgement from the people around me, and from someone I respected deeply, was enough. My dignity had become its own quiet weapon, cutting through their shame without a single word. Even as my parents lingered, the mayor's gesture had done what no confrontation could. It forced them to face the impact of their neglect indirectly, their authority undermined by public recognition of the child they had overlooked. The neighborhood buzzed with admiration, and I realized that respect, once denied by those closest to you, could still be earned and acknowledged elsewhere. That night, as the crowd dispersed and the lights faded, I realized the true gift I had been given, not just flowers, attention, or applause, but the understanding that my value didn't depend on those who failed to see it. Sitting alone later that night, the quiet finally returned, but it felt different, softer, almost comforting. I thought about how it took someone completely outside my family, someone with no obligation to care, to recognize my worth. That realization stung, but it also freed me. I no longer needed to chase their approval or measure myself by their attention. For the first time, I understood that self-worth isn't something granted by those who should see you. It's something you build through your actions, your kindness, your courage, and the integrity you show when no one is watching. The empowerment that came from that acknowledgement felt stronger than any hug, any words, any celebration I had ever hoped for from my parents. And that's when I understood. Sometimes the people who should see you never will. But others will. They forgot my birthday, but the world reminded me I mattered. In that moment, I realized that validation doesn't always come from the people who are supposed to love you. It can come from the most unexpected places, from strangers who see your worth when those closest to you cannot. Life has a way of teaching us that our value isn't measured by neglect or favoritism, but by the quiet strength we carry and the impact we make on others. So I ask you, have you ever been forgotten by the people who should have cared the most? And did it take a stranger to remind you of your worth? What would you do if this happened to you? Comment below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more. See you in the next video.